we can forget about them.
We can forget about them, except that it's maybe not in the public realm. It's not uppermost in the minds of the public realm. But Starmer does have this problem of riding two horses, in that he's got to look like the Labour Party's prospective party of government.
Yes.
And yet, obviously, the Labour Party was founded by the trades unions. I think in this instance, we need to be going in hard on
in support of the trade unions.
Dereliction of duty, yes, but in support, but also pointing out the dereliction of duty of the current Transport Secretary, because the government likes to, detach and divorce itself from any responsibility for what's going on in our public services. It likes to fragment and be one or two steps removed.
They don't necessarily do that by supporting industrial action. A critique of transport policy in this country doesn't involve, because they're calling for a general strike now. Hand on heart, Theresa. When prominent trades unionists, still perceived wrongly as being inextricably linked with the Labour Party, the RNT hasn't been since 2004.
No, that's true.
When Mick Lynch comes out and says we want a general strike, what do you think happens in Conservative Central Office?
But they'll be having orgasms. I'm sure they will.
Oh, God, there's an image there. Oh, no. Couldn't you have just said cracking the champagne corks or something like that? God, Theresa.
No, I don't think we need to be having, we don't need Keir to be coming out in full-throated support of a general strike call. No, obviously not.
And yet the strike that you want him to come out in full-throated support of is being led by a man who is calling or very close to calling for a general strike. So you see his position is more difficult than you allow.
It is difficult. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but no. You can make an argument based on the facts and principles, and I think that's where a good communicator
and we need more of that.
Politician
we need more
on
of
the
that.
Facts. So if you look at the facts of this dispute, if you look at the facts of what the government has or hasn't done in order to avoid this strike, look at the facts of what the actual pay and conditions is like for the workers. Also, the most criminal thing about our railways is the terrible value for money they are. The way that passengers are ripped off. I don't even know how anyone can afford to travel by train anymore.
It's breathtaking, actually, and
it's the worst
needless
value
to
on
say,
the planet.
Of course it is, and the money that's making its way into the coffers of the train company owners. Is epic. I mean, there is a fundamental madness at the heart of Western politics, but UK politics in particular. Energy prices, the energy companies posting record profits, while every household in the country, pretty much, bar the ones inhabited by people who are vying for the Conservative Party leadership, but most households in the country are looking at the energy bill horizon with a genuine shiver.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Martin Lewis is doing his nut this morning.
I know he really is, and when Martin is doing his nut, we should all pay attention. There should be a national alarm attached to Martin Lewis's nut, and whenever he is doing it, the alarms should go off. But they're too busy. As I said, Johnson's off doing this bizarre Challenge Annika tribute act. Sunak and Truss are biting chunks out of each other, and the rest of them are competing. I don't normally reach for Godwin's law, But Hitler banned strikes, didn't he, in 1933?
He absolutely did, yeah. And that's another thing, it's another culture war issue as well.
Yes. And that's why he is trying...
Oversimplified, pick a side, cheerlead.
But that's why he's trying to stay out of it. He's refusing to play that game, isn't he?
True, but if you don't...
At some point...
you don't have a set of principled beliefs which you are prepared to argue for on the facts, then what are you doing?
If you stand for nothing, Burr, what will you fall for?
This is true.
I changed my view of Starmer when I sat down with him for an hour, and I came away from that interview thinking he was a man possessed of deeply held, passionately held principles. But it is an epic failure of articulation that you are describing here. And when I said to him, you need to be more of a salesman. No, I said to him, you need to be more of a showman. He said, no, I don't. Look what happened when we elected a showman. And there's a little bit of me that wants to say, yeah, but he got elected. But the logic is unimpeachable. Look what happened when we elected a showman. We've got a country in absolute crisis. I said, all right, then you need to be a better salesman. And I stand by that. I really do. And you are not seeing at the moment a salesman possessed of either product or patter that meet your approval, and that's the problem. What about genuinely floating voters? Because the people, I'm not going to have an argument with you about trade unions. We had a lovely call yesterday from a lad who fulfilled that role perfectly, and it is always about either envy or, forgive me, ignorance. Everyone should be in favour of trade unions. If every worker should be in favour of workers' rights. All right, just as every human should be in favour of human rights. But we live in an era where workers have been successfully persuaded that workers' rights are a bad idea. And, of course, humans are in the process of being persuaded by the same people, the same politicians, that human rights are a bad idea. So I don't want to relitigate an argument about why you think trade unions are your enemy. But I do want to know whether or how you respond to the decision and position of Keir Starmer on this particular strike. It is 11:30, and Dominic Ellis is here now with your headlines. It is 11:32. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we're just looking at the Labour Party's relatively little problem with industrial action, with the railway strike being blown up inevitably in some corners, but it's a big enough problem to merit coverage and certainly to merit our conversation today. There has been a threat of a general strike in response to Truss's pledge to legislate against action, and I'm afraid that Adolf Hitler, you know what Godwin's law is, don't you? Godwin's law is he's a cool dude, an academic who said at some point, whenever an argument unfolds on the internet, someone will invoke the Nazis, and it's true. But he does provide exemptions. We follow each other on Twitter. I'd like his account a lot. He does provide exemptions. For example, when Donald Trump was on the march in America, Godwin gave an exemption. He said, no. There's absolutely. He said, you fill your boots on the on invoking the worst memories of the far right. So I do think that although Godwin's law is a very powerful tool, it is perfectly reasonable to point out that Adolf Hitler banned strikes. I think in 1933. It would be 33, wouldn't it? And, of course, trade unions appear in Pastor Niemöller's poem about first they came for the socialists, and I didn't do anything because I wasn't a socialist. And then they came for the trades unionists, and I didn't do anything because I wasn't a trades unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I didn't do anything because I was a Jew. And then they came for the gypsies, and I didn't do anything because I wasn't a gypsy. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to do anything. It's an incredibly powerful poem. It's why it has survived through the ages. But the trades unionists were absolutely and categorically on Hitler's hit list. And they are on Liz Truss's as well. And Rishi Sunak's and Kwasi Kwarteng's. And the last two of those, or beg pardon, the first and the third of those two characters even wrote a book about how awful British workers are, calling you among the idlest in the world. But hey-ho. It's not as if Maya Angelou didn't warn us. When someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Jacob's in Cobham. Jacob, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James. How are you?
Very well, mate. What's on your mind?
I think that Keir Starmer, like, as you said before, he's you said that he doesn't necessarily need to be a charismatic character.
Oh, no, I'd rather he was. I'm just saying that he isn't.
No. I've heard you question whether you think that's necessary in a leader. Previously, having believed it was necessary, and I think it is necessary at times like this, where instead of pandering to the powers that be, being the red wall, and the voters that he's trying to,
how is he pandering to them? How is he pandering to them? Do you think?
Because they're the ones that are scared of the trade unions, and instead of being charismatic enough and articulate enough to sell trade unions and the labour movement to them, he's trying to change the labour movement, or he's trying to change the Labour Party.
Nobody in Britain has successfully found the secret to dismantling the demonisation of trade unions since 1979, mate. That would include Neil Kinnock, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, Ed Miliband, Jeremy Corbyn, and Keir Starmer. So you're asking quite a lot of him.
You look at people like Mick Lynch is in the last month has done the rounds on the media scene,
Yes.
and he's gone from being somebody who's just a trade union leader and famous to his own people to somebody who is a bit of a hero to a lot of young people who usually never look at a middle-aged white man and cheer him. He's somebody like that has managed to sell the idea of trade unions. He's
sold. I mean, in the short term, he sold the idea that railway workers deserve a better deal,
and nurses deserve a better deal, and everybody.
He's not really sold that yet. He might well be capable of doing so, but if the challenge is, if the battle is being fought between trade unions and governments, and Keir Starmer seeks to form a government, then what purpose is served by him, if you like, garnering plaudits from people like you while making no difference at all to the conflict, to the process of conflict resolution?
I suppose it's showing support for the working people in a
and then we're back.
way.
Then we're back to our NHS union rep from a moment ago, who reminded us of all the working people who get turned over by industrial action, have their lives disrupted, and in some cases their livelihoods.
If they were part of trade unions themselves, they might have a better option.
And then we're back to that. Then we're back to that. What I think is an unfixable Rubik's cube, but you think it could be fixed. The idea that we live in a country where lots of people don't like trade unions and aren't in trade unions. It's not an answer to say, I wish we lived in a country where lots of people were in trade unions. Keir Starmer has to get elected in a country where they're not, Jacob.
Okay, if you... let's take... trade unions, I know that trade unions aren't inherently bad. You know that trade unions aren't inherently bad. You've been singing their praises for the last couple of days.
The last 15 years, 20 years, actually, mate.
Well, okay, so...
as it goes.
Me and you know that they're good things.
Yeah, but Keir Starmer needs the votes of... Right. Keir Starmer does need the votes of people who think they're not.
So he needs to convince those people that they are good things rather than abandon the votes of people who...
He's not going to abandon any votes. He's not going to really lose any votes.
I think he is.
Do you?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Do you think that? You think people are going to facilitate another Conservative government because Keir Starmer hasn't come out in favour of a railway strike?
I think there are people on the left that are.
It's about 10,000.
Keir Starmer will leave a bad taste in their mouth.
So who will they vote for instead? Who will they vote for instead?
They'll vote for Greens. They'll vote for.
And we're talking about. We're talking. I mean, listen. I spend ages on Twitter, so please don't think this is a criticism. But do you spend a lot of time on Twitter?
No, I spend a lot of time Reddit. Okay,
because I think this sort of self-selecting social media cohort is tiny. I had a look at some of the sort of media organisations that are funded by subscription. I presume that they've got like 250,000 subscribers, or at least 100,000 subscribers. The number of subscribers these outfits have is absolutely minimal, and yet they drive so much social media conversation in the direction that you describe. This is what I mean by, it's an unpleasant phrase, I won't use it again, but I'll use it once more. Spending their lives on social media sniffing their own farts while being utterly irrelevant to the broader question of how the Labour Party actually wins elections. It's the large part.
I'm not sure that they are completely irrelevant, though, James.
Well, then how come they led the Labour Party to the worst defeat it's had since 1935, just 3 short years ago?
Because the media were briefing against Corbyn.
Oh, come on, mate.
No, come on, they were. They were. The media were heavily briefing.
And what do you think they're
Corbyn.
doing to Keir Starmer at the moment?
They're not exactly his best friend, but with
and in that battle, which one have you sided with today?
With the battle between
Starmer and the right-wing media.
Oh, so I would side with Starmer because.
Then why are you talking to me about people who aren't going to vote for him?
Because I know that they're out there, and
I'm telling you that they are an irrelevance.
I don't think they are, though. I honestly don't.
But you're not one of them.
I'm a little more pragmatic than a lot of people that I've spoken to on Twitter, but and Reddit and all of these places. Yes. But they're not places that.
You see, the thing is about my job, and I'm very lucky in that I get to speak, and I have got to speak for years through 4 Labour leaders. I've got to speak to people who would never appear on social media to offer up a political opinion. They're too busy. They're getting on with their lives, and that's what informs my view of Labour Party politics, is the votes that they need to win are not votes that are spending 8 hours a day on social media complaining about centrists. That's not even an opinion, Jacob. That's just counting.
So the idea is to abandon
You don't need to abandon them.
Unions.
No one's abandoning trade unions. The trade unions still provide enormous funding to the Labour Party. Angela Rayner is the deputy leader. Sadiq Khan is the mayor of London. He was sat here this morning saying that he'd appear on picket lines. It's not. I mean, you're just not describing a reality that exists in the real world.
I'd like to see either of those two in the place of Keir Starmer singing the praises of trade unions.
So would the Daily Mail.
Rather than sacking somebody.
And so would the Daily Mail.
Really? Do you think that the Daily Mail would like to see Angela Rayner as the leader?
I think they probably would. Who do you think they'd find it easier to attack?
Honestly, Starmer.
Okay.
As a Labour, if they're going to try and attack him from the left,
the Daily Mail's never attacked anyone from the left, mate. The Daily Mail couldn't attack Genghis Khan from the left. But if they're looking for things with which to spook their readership, then they need to find people who are least like their readership. And that would be Angela Rayner. Or indeed, of course, Sadiq Khan. But hey, I mean, you might be right, you might be wrong. It's a shame that you're not representing position that you actually hold yourself. You're just talking about how loads and loads of people do hold this position that you don't actually hold yourself, because that makes my job a bit tricky, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm just saying. I'm a little more pragmatic, so I'd like to see the Tories out. I'd not necessarily.
But you'd like to see Starmer out as well. So, to a degree, you've kind of perhaps betrayed something there.
Starmer's the best of a. He's the best worst option.
Yeah. He's not. I mean, he's not perfect. But what are the options? 03456060973 is the number that you need. 11:43 is the time. One more. Tim's in Belfast. Tim, what's going on?
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm a bit. I mean, what would be the word?
Jaded.
Beleaguered. But yeah, jaded is good. Thank you, Tim. Jaded is good. Carry on. It's Mystery Hour at 12. I've got a brilliant guest coming up in a minute. So lots of reasons to be cheerful. But what do you think? Because I think everyone agrees we'd like to have seen the last 3 Labour leaders score more brilliant goals than they've actually managed to score on the pitch. Yeah. And then everybody argues about how unlevel the pitch is, and that's why our fella never scores. And it is just very, very dispiriting, isn't it? But on we go.
I think what one of the problems that Labour had, there have been 2 successful Labour governments in history, really. And the first one was the 1946 Clement Attlee, and the second one was Blair and Brown.
Yes.
And yet mention of Tony Blair or Gordon Brown produces the most vitriolic attacks from the Labour Party and Labour Party members, that group that you have been talking about. And understandably within context of the Iraq War. But what that has done is smokescreen all of the absolutely phenomenal achievements that government actually managed. I've done some work in Belfast, but I've done some work in Rochdale with the council there. Oh, yeah. And one of the council leaders said, it was life-changing what happened in the Blair-Brown government for them. It was new schools, it was new hospitals, it was new investment, it was new jobs. And that was the actual success rather than the promises and the nonsense we've heard from the Tories about building 40 new hospitals, blah, blah, blah. But they actually achieved masses and masses of what a Labour Party should do. And they did it for the people. They did it so the people's lives were better, which is ultimately where, in my politics, I think the government should support those people that need the support rather than those that are already okay. And by completely decrying that government in its totality because of the word Blair.
Yeah.
What you know.
It's because of the word Iraq, actually, if we're honest.
Yeah. No. To be fair, I am not justifying Iraq. It was a horrific and stupid error, and it comes from hubris, which I think any leader arrives at.
Interesting.
But the achievements of that Blair government and the Browns running of the economy and the investment in the infrastructure in Britain was second to no government in the last 50 or 60 years. But the Labour Party won't even let itself talk about that.
I've not had experience of that, but it does, now that you describe it, sound a bit familiar. I think Alistair Campbell shares an awful lot of your frustrations. Briefly, because you've gone quite off message, enjoyable though it is.
Okay.
What should they be doing with regard to the current round of industrial action?
Well, they should, I mean, you started the conversation by saying they should have clarity. That's the first thing. They should be supporting the people in work, not necessarily by striking or supporting the strike, although there's a side to me that says, yes, they should, but they should certainly have some sort of concrete, visible, clear plan.
What do you think about the RMT's grievances? I don't know. That is a problem, right? And I do this for a living.
Huge problem. So they should be saying, okay, we're going to work with the union to get the problem solved. We're not going to ignore the union, but we're not necessarily going to say we're going to all go out onto the picket line. But the issues are very clear, and Mick Lynch has articulated them superbly. And he's almost like, why don't you just use these as a way to say what the problems are with the rail union? And this whole sort of like all they have to do is appeal to the middle ground is just nonsensical. I mean, it's interesting, the guys I knew in Rochdale, they all hated the whole Corbyn.
I know they did, but you're not allowed to say that in the world of the ideologically pure. That's all my fault, or that's all.
We don't even.
That's all the fault of the right wing media, or me. It's got absolutely nothing to do with Jeremy Corbyn. How little people like Jeremy Corbyn. Last word then, because I've got a brilliant guest coming up, which is in a contrast to you. Just from Anne while you've been speaking. Simply says, Starmer has said that ministers shouldn't stand on picket lines when they need to be negotiating after becoming a government. He's making Labour, electable. Just imagine what the right-wing press would do if the Labour Party was queuing up to agree with the pickets. She's got a point. She's got a point.
There is a point, but also the other side of that coin is the Labour needs to start taking on the right-wing press properly and putting in place proper systems to manage it.
I completely agree with you, and I oddly, for all my criticisms of him, I thought the last fellow might have been in a position to at least to try to do that. That's why I was so baffled as to why they weren't turning up for interviews or ever doing any media except in
And I mean, they
stages
need to start saying things like every time it's mentioned, say the Rothermere-owned Daily Mail.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. And Starmer is not going down that course. He's trying to keep the sort of tiger chained up, whereas Corbyn, I thought, might have done at one point. I thought he might have actually tried. Maybe he did, but he just only ever did it in rooms full of people that already agreed with him. He never did it on television programmes. Owen Jones did a great job with Andrew Neil once of bringing all this stuff to the forefront. And if that wing of the party were to make real inroads, it would need an advocate appearing absolutely everywhere, making those points passionately. And you don't get invited on those shows if you're a pundit much. But if you're the leader of the opposition, you can go on any show you want, whenever you want, pretty much, including, of course, this one. 11:51 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I'm joined in the studio by Kira Rudik, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, in fact, leader of the Golos party, which translates as voice. And I'm very grateful for your company, Kira. What brings you to Britain?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So I'm here to work on a very important direction, which is unfreezing of the Russian assets and using them to support Ukraine. You see, it's been 5.5 months through the war. You have been one of our strongest allies, but we also understand that your resources are also not unlimited. And though we will need more and more weapons, money, supplies, everything, we know that there would be a very complicated autumn, very complicated winter for everybody. The cost of living is going up, the energy bills are going up. And the question is, why should people here in the United Kingdom be paying for the war that Putin started out of their pockets? And this question is also not to the people in the United Kingdom. It's also for the United States, for Canada, for European countries. So, and I totally understand it is unfair and it's not logical. And this is why we need to figure out the way to get money somewhere. And this is somewhere. Money of Russian oligarchs and Russian banks that are stored here in the UK, in the United States, in some European countries. And this is what I'm working on with my colleagues from the parliament on getting the legislation in place. While there is a recess, while the politicians are not working, the legal teams are working, yes. And I do hope
some
that
of them are working.
Yeah. So, but you have like very active politics as for the end of July, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So by the time of the reopening of the session, I want to have some drafts in.
It's not. I mean, I'm not going to give you any lessons on your brief because you're clearly well across it. There is not a particularly high public opinion in this country against the idea of funding more. I mean, it's likely to grow as the cost of living crisis increases. So I don't want my listeners to think that it's either or. They'd be happy to see some of their taxes going towards supporting the people of Ukraine in this war against Vladimir Putin. But there is an irresistible logic to the idea that all of the crooks and Putin cronies that have been living in Belgravia and Mayfair and Kensington for the last 20 years, putting their money in the deep freeze is pointless when it could be deployed to actually provide the support that your country is in such desperate need of. How widespread is the knowledge in Ukraine of how London in particular has become a haven for these sort of characters?
Well, this knowledge is there. We know that actually Russia was very active during the last, 20 years in putting their eggs in a very, very different baskets. The tragedy of the situation with the war is that for the last 8 years, Putin was not only having war, acting on the war in Ukraine, he's preparing. He was preparing and he was hiding the assets, saving money. So at the day one of the war, he had $600 billion just of savings that he had for the war. And this is now he's using that. We didn't have that. And I don't think that European countries or all our democratic allies, that they had those. And this is an issue that we are facing right now. And actually, this is one of the reasons why Boris Johnson is so popular in Ukraine, because he was the first democratic leader who came in and said, we should have acted earlier. We should not have turned our eyes off the war that was going on for the 8 years.
He was foreign secretary in a government that didn't act earlier. But these are details that I don't think they don't matter.
We are talking about the facts and the public opinion, and these are usually different things.
I never more so than with him. I can tell you that for nothing.
I can tell you, I was in Rada when he was giving his speech, and the applause were probably one of the longest one that I ever heard. So
they probably weren't aware of him partying with Alexander Lebedev in Italy a couple of years ago. But no matter, because the resources were provided, and we have led that was some of the line. I mean, not on America's scale, but in Europe context, we've done an awful lot. What are the biggest obstacles then? So there are a lot of assets here, and long before the war in Ukraine, the Sergei Magnitsky Foundation and my friend Bill Browder were working tirelessly to identify the people that were essentially spiriting stolen money out of Russia and using it to live like kings and queens across the Western world. But what are the legal obstacles to getting that money out of those accounts and those assets sold? And for people who don't know, there are buildings in London that are they're like the Palace of Versailles in the 21st century. They are ludicrous confections with basements that go 4 stories deep and are full of coal. The scale of the money that's there is unimaginable. What are the major obstacles to getting it from those grubby hands into the hands of the Ukrainian government?
So first, Bill Browder was the one who actually gave this idea, and he was behind this project. So it's just heartwarming that you mentioned him. And on the legislative part, there are 2 obstacles. The first one is called private property, where you say, well, if somebody has something, how do we define that this person gained it illegally or with using Putin's power? And then, how do you define dirty money? This is the question that every single country actually struggles with. And the second question is, if we are talking about the money from the Russian banks, which I'm actually after, it's international law.
Okay. So you're optimistic then?
I am optimistic. And you know why I'm optimistic? Because Canada has already done this.
Yes.
So they have passed the legislation. They have not acted on that just yet, but they have passed it. So they basically broke their ice. And so it's just so fantastic to have this card in my pocket, because whenever somebody is telling me, oh, it is impossible, etc., I'm saying, look, Canada have done this. Yeah. So why do you guys think you're better or worse than Canada? And they, okay, well, let us think. So I'm very optimistic in this, and I'm very confident that if we do the legislation right, and if we set this precedent, it could be a pressure point for everybody else who would want to become an aggressor. That you start the war, most of your inner circle will lose their assets, and your country and yourself will lose most of your assets abroad. That could be a very strong point. Because, look, we have been 5.5 months into the war, and Putin and his surrounding and his inner circle, they still have everything that they've got. It is frozen, but we know this saying, what is frozen can be unfrozen.
Of course it can.
Well, and I want it to be used for Ukrainian sake, so then there is no way back.
And I suppose, speaking of optimism, we have to finally turn towards the situation on the ground in Ukraine. The war, as you remind us, has lasted for a hell of a lot longer than Vladimir Putin was expecting it to, and probably rather longer than many Ukrainians were expecting it to. What is the appetite at home for the continuing battle?
So the issue is at which stage we will enter the winter.
Yes.
It will be extremely hard to fight during the winter, both for us and for Russians. So we want to take back our southern territories. And this is why we are asking for increased support in weapons and supplies, because we see the ability for our army to do that, and we see the resolve, and we see the energy and tactical possibilities to do that. Putin is pushing us in the east, and he will continue doing so. And generally the front is extremely wide. So because we are fighting in all directions and always having a threat that Belarus will jump into the war and start threatening us from the north. So our plan minimum is to take back the southern territories. Plan maximum is to get as many weapons as possible and push them from everywhere. We have seen how effective our army was when we've got finally the NATO-grade HIMARSs and other systems. So we need more of that. It's simple as that.
And speaking of simple, I apologize for the simplicity of this question, but what does, in your personal opinion, what does the end of the war look like?
We'll take back the territories. We will be able to wear Russia down with the sanctions, and he will just not have the resources to continue the war. This is the end of the war for us. And it's not a peace, it's victory.
Kira Rudik, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
A pleasure to have you in the studio. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. The time now is 12 noon.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Mystery Hour with James O'Brien.
4 minutes after 12 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Talk about a gear change. Sometimes we have little conversations off air. One of the most important interviews I'll do this year, no doubt, just then with Kira. And then coming off the back of that, we launch into our weekly visit to the shallow end of our shared time together. But hey-ho, it is indeed time for Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of, part of me is hoping that Kira's left the building now. I don't want her to think that she's just appeared on a radio programme that usually just faffs about doing rubbish like this instead of discussing all the important issues that we discuss the rest of the time. So for 1 hour of the week, if you're new to this programme, we have some fun. And that hour is now upon us. Your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. But we will be returning to the major issues of the moment, not least the situation in Ukraine, tomorrow morning at 10, 5 minutes after 12. So this is a game, essentially, which has no purpose except entertainment and amusement, and a modicum of enlightenment, a modicum of education. But if you're anything like me, you'll probably forget the stuff that you learn before Sheila's even reached her first junction on her programme. I offer a promise that you will know more by 1 o'clock today than you do now. You will know more by 1 o'clock today than you do now. And I stand by that promise. I don't think there's ever been a Mystery Hour that hasn't delivered at least one nugget of knowledge to every single person listening. But as I say, you might have actually lost that nugget of knowledge by 10 past 1 this afternoon. Or, of course, if you're listening on the podcast, whatever time is relevant. It is a feature where people ring in to ask questions, silly, serious, scientific, or none of the above. And then other people ring in to answer the questions. And if you've never listened to it before, you're in for a treat. The podcast is available, by the way. Quite a lot of people every holiday season get in touch to say, I didn't realise there was like a back catalogue of podcasts. We listened to 11 while we were driving to Spain, and it's really lovely because all the family enjoy it. Everybody learns something. It's generally pretty funny, but there are loads of them available on Global Player, LBC. And in recent years, months, last Christmas, in recent months, we've had a wonderful addition to the Mystery Hour family, which is the Mystery Hour board game, a free copy of which makes its way into the grasping mitts of whoever provides my favourite contribution to the weekly programme. The terms and conditions are, of course, available at lbc.co.uk, where you can also find details of how to get yourself on the Global Player app, which is probably the easiest way to access the Mystery Hour archive. And that's it, really, isn't it? And my decision is final. I literally just send a game to my favourite contributor. If you're not lucky enough to win one, don't worry, you can buy one. mysteryhour.co.uk is the exclusive dedicated portal, but you can also find copies of the Mystery Hour board game, and they're easy to find because my grinning face, a photograph that looks as though it was taken about 30 years ago, will be grinning at you from it wasn't taken 30 years ago, it's taken about 20 years ago. We'll be grinning at you. So it's the power of Photoshop and airbrush. We'll be grinning at you from the box, or of course you can, as ever with almost everything else on the planet, you can buy it from Amazon Amazon as well. And that round of applause is, of course, the sound you will hear if you provide a correct answer. I've done it again. It's gone down the wrong hole, and I'm live on the radio. This kind of thing never happens to Chris Moyles. Chantel is in Tower Hamlets. Chantel, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Take your time.
No problem. I'm wondering, why do we cry? So,
usually because we've just swallowed something down the wrong hole and you're live on the radio desperately pretending not to be having some sort of paroxysm.
I was just thinking that you might be crying now. You might be producing tears. Why do we produce tears? Why do we do that?
It's a lovely question, actually. I can't believe we've never had it before, which means we probably have, but given that I can't remember the answer, I'm happy to ask it again. You've also, Chantel, given me a wonderful opportunity to talk about the last time I cried before this time, which was last night.
Oh.
Watching Sister Act. Watching Sister Act at the Hammersmith Apollo, which is, a musical to beat all musicals. An absolutely magnificent show. It's on for another 5 weeks, so if you get the chance to get yourself down there, I could not recommend it highly enough. Beverly Knight, just delivering a performance of sublime perfection, Chantel.
Wow.
You weren't expecting this.
So I might be able to get down.
All right, well, it is absolutely brilliant. Jennifer Saunders playing the Mother Superior, Clive Rowe playing the Copper. There's a young woman in it who plays Sister Margaret Roberts or something. There's Mary Margaret Roberts, is it? Or Sister Mary Roberts, who just comes to the front of the stage and delivers. I mean, she's not even in the sort of on the top of the poster, and she delivers one of the most beautiful moments I've ever seen on a West End stage. But my goodness me, Beverly Knight, great friend of the programme, delivers the performance of. But that's why I cried last night, because it was such a beautiful.
So why do you think, though? Why do you think the tears came out? Why? What was the function of the tears?
You mean the evolutionary function, really, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we sweat to help control body temperature, and we sneeze if we get something up our nose to help clear it out. Why do we produce tears? Why does that happen? And it happens in a range of situations: happy, overwhelming, sad, angry, even sometimes. Why does that happen?
I don't know if I should say this on the radio. I'll make sure that make sure no one clips this, because I'm about to go peak partridge. I sometimes cry a bit when I'm eating really nice cheese. Do you not get that? Okay. I kind of get weird. No, I shouldn't have gone. I'll leave that one there. No, let's pretend that never happened. Let's pretend that bit never happened, all right?
No one was listening anyway.
Yeah, exactly that. 11 minutes after 12. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Great question there from Chantel about crying, which contained absolutely no reference to cheese whatsoever. Great, lovely stuff. Great stuff. Why do we cry? John is in Bristol. John, question or answer?
James, welcome home, mate.
Hello, John. How are you? Welcome home. There he is.
Yeah, I phoned you a couple of weeks ago when I was on my second honeymoon in Greece and you was away.
Whereabouts in Greece were you?
I were on the island of Skiathos. Bay in Skiathos.
Did you have a lovely time?
Oh, it was fabulous because we were celebrating, well, it's my birthday Saturday and I'm 70. Oh. We were celebrating our 15 years wedding anniversary. And
oh, that's nice. So when you say a second honeymoon, it was with the same person.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. That's nice. I thought it was. Yes, that's lovely.
Yeah, and we did our wedding vows on the beach at sunset. It was absolutely lovely.
Polyomorphy.
Yeah. So that's where the question came from.
Go on then.
Where does the word honeymoon come from, or what does it mean? I know it's ancient.
Yes.
But there's more to it than just slap and tickle.
Well, hang on. You mean the actual etymology? The origin of the word?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this. I actually know this.
You do?
Yeah.
Go on, then.
I think it's in the board game, John. Have you got the board game?
I have got the board game, yeah.
No, it takes a lot. You'd have to play a lot of games to get through every card in it.
Yeah, I know. I haven't seen that, no.
Oh. You know what mead is?
Yes.
Mead is a drink made out of honey, right?
That's right, yeah.
An alcoholic drink.
Yeah.
If you got married in the olden days, the village would all club together. Not so much in the UK, I don't think. But I'm not. I mean, that is moot. To give you enough mead to last a month. And a month being a lunar month, as in one passage of the moon. And that is where honeymoon comes from.
Good God Almighty.
No, just call me James.
Yeah, James. I mean, that's.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Qualifications. It's come up before on Mystery Hour. I'm 99.9% certain of it, but that doesn't matter. It's all in the moment, isn't it?
But I tell you what. On the Friday night before we flew out to Greece, we nearly never made it.
Why is that then?
Well, because I went down the garage, because we're just outside Bristol, a little village, Farrington Gurney.
Oh, lovely.
And the garage to fill the car up with petrol, and the pound signs roaring away.
Oh, I know.
Hardly any juices going in, and I came over all faint and dizzy.
At the cost.
I dialed 111, and they asked the symptoms, and I told them.
Here we go. Hang on, everybody. Wait, everybody. Punchline incoming. Go on.
They said you're suffering from coronavirus.
What's that? Give me a round of applause, quick. Oh, mind how you go, John. Congratulations. Was it worth the wait? Jack's in Haywards Heath. Jack, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on. Likewise.
I'm just wondering, why is a sweet potato classed as one of your 5 a day and a normal potato isn't?
Yeah, I mean, you're presuming that a sweet potato and a potato are more closely related to each other than a...
apple and a potato.
Yeah, I think you might be wrong, you see. I think a sweet potato might be more closely related to, for example, a carrot than a potato.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right.
Does it? No, it doesn't, does it, now I said it out loud? But it's not... I mean, there's not a lot of similarity between a sweet potato and a potato. Apart from external, apart from the shape, the flat. I mean, you do very different things with a sweet potato from what you would do with a potato.
Well, no, because you can mash it, you can roast it, you can...
Yeah, well, you can do that with carrot. Or a Swede. It's more like a Swede. So I'm putting it on the board, obviously, but I think the answer is going to be something along the lines of, even though we call it a sweet potato, it is not actually a potato, it is in fact a yam. Not a yam, but, you know, something that is not a potato.
Okay, well, good to find the answer.
I shall do. I'd almost put money on us finding the answer to this one, Jack. Do you like Do you like sweet potatoes? Because Mrs. O'Brien sometimes says, "Oh, should we order sweet potato fries instead of fries?" And it's one of those things where you sort of think, "Oh, I have to say yes," because they're obviously so much more healthy. But I mean, I'm having a burger. I don't want sweet potato fries with my burger. I want
sweet potato fries with a steak. Lovely.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'd much rather have sweet potato than normal potato.
Heretic. You're one of those. You're one of those communists, aren't you? Let's try and find out why is sweet potato healthier than potato. It's one of your 5 a day when potato per se is not. It's 12:16 and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
18 minutes after 12. I've had quite a lot of complaints about that comment about crying when I eat very nice cheese, which is fair enough. And I always like to air complaints on the programme. I always quite honest and upfront about them. So this is what Liz in Westminster had to say.
That is a disgrace.
I know. I'm sorry. I won't comment about my physical reactions to eating cheese again, ever. I promise. Sorry. James is in Leeds. James, question or answer?
Oh, hi, James. It's a question.
Carry on.
So the letter W.
Yes.
So on a Standard English keyboard, when you look at it, it's more like a double V.
Yes.
So in the English alphabet, why do we call it a W when it looks more like a double V?
Well, because it didn't. It used to look like a V. I mean, in Latin, if I get this right, carry on.
So.
No, it is because a U used to look like V. A U used to look like a V. It comes from the Latin, doesn't it?
Oh, does it? Okay.
I think so. I could be wrong.
Oh,
but
right.
I mean, the obvious answer is that we used to, whatever it is a double of, it used to look like that. They've never gone, oh, let's call it a double U, even though it is actually a double V. When they called it a double U, it was a double U. And either the way we draw a double U has changed a bit, or the way we draw a U has changed a bit. And I get confused. What is it in Latin? Think of a Latin word. Go on, James. Think of it. What have we got?
No, I'm no good with Latin. Sorry.
No. Just Veni, Vidi, Vici. There's no U there, is there? Veni, Vidi, Vici. Is there a V and a U? Okay, this isn't really helping, is it?
But then, even when you go across our standard alphabet, you'd think to put the U and the W next to one another rather than separate it with a V.
Yeah. I mean, you're going quite deep now.
Just a little bit. It's the first letter of my surname, and I've only just thought of it recently, and I'm thinking, why is it a double U when it's a double V?
They wouldn't put a U, V, W. I mean, they didn't order the alphabet based on what the letters look like, mate, did they?
Yeah, that's true.
No. So you've got a U, a V, and a W, and why didn't they? Yeah, it's a double U. It's got nothing to do with V's. That's it. And also, if you're doing it by hand, it's a double U, isn't it?
Well, my writing's atrocious, but I used to point my W's.
Really?
I never used
what
actually.
Sort of a monster are you? Did you go to school? That should have been bad. Scout would have been beaten out of you by the monks at my school, mate. No, I mean you can't do a pointed V on a W.
I went to a comprehensive school. I don't know if that makes any difference.
Right. I'll put it on the board, but I'm pretty sure that it was a W when it was invented, as it were.
Well, see what we get, if we get anything.
Yeah, well, who knows? I'll find out for you. Why is a W called a W and not called a double V? 03456060973. Tony's in Sittingbourne. Tony, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on, Tony.
Along probably with most of my generation, when I was a child, I was told if you dropped a penny
off the Empire State Building,
it would kill somebody. Yeah, that's exactly the one. I wondered if it was true, and if it isn't, would some clever person know what height you have to drop a penny off the building for the velocity to kill someone rather unpleasantly?
There would. I mean, there's terminal velocity, isn't there? So there'd be a point. I mean, it's not going to get eternally faster, infinitely faster the higher you go. There's a point at which it would never get faster. Did you also? Weren't there bits about? You can see on the pavement at the bottom of the Empire State Building, you can see the grooves where pennies have hit or something like that. I think there was probably a kid at my school who went a little bit further than the classic.
I've not heard one, but it wouldn't, I don't think they would let you drop a penny off it. I've been up there a couple of times. They're quite fastidious about dropping things off.
Yeah, and then there's fences up and everything, isn't there? You'd struggle to... I love that one. I can't. I mean,
thank you.
Well, I can't believe I've reached the age of.
By the way.
Say again.
I thank you for loving the question. I love board games, by the way.
Shameful behaviour. Absolutely shameful. Well, shameless, shameful. They mean the same thing almost. All right, it's on the board. And your enthusiasm for board games is registered. And I can't believe.
Can I say one last thing before I go, James?
Of course you can. Yeah.
Please don't go on holiday. It really ruins my.
I have to
you don't.
I do. I have to go on holiday to remind my family why they want me to go to work, you see.
Okay, well, like I say, it's empty without you, mate.
Oh, you're so
it's
sweet.
A horrible couple of weeks.
It's like putting in a shift for that board game now, isn't it? Yeah?
No, that is true. Board game aside, that is true.
Thank
Great
you.
speaking with you, mate.
Likewise. Thank you, Tony. And I think some of the stand-ins did a great job. Tom certainly did, and Chris Bryant got some lovely feedback. Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, all got some big plaudits, and quite a few people said they quite like Jeremy Hunt as well. Would you believe? 23 minutes after 12 is the time. Milton is in Rome. Milton, question or answer?
Good morning.
Hello.
It's a question.
Right.
Okay, so I am of Afro-Caribbean descent, and I've only just realised that I actually do need to use sunblock.
What happened?
Now, I suddenly started listening to experts. What are you going to do? I mean,
I see. You don't. I thought you got burnt or something like that.
Well, yes, my skin has experienced some tenderness.
Yes,
but still, like most people, I would have ignored it and carried on. But okay, so I'm here and I'm getting mosquito bites as well.
Yes,
and so I normally use a body cream to keep my young and fresh looking.
I get you. Is it coconut based? Is it coconut butter?
It is, of course. Yes, exactly that. Yeah.
Same here. I like that. Makes you smell like a Bounty bar, which I'm told some ladies quite like. Milton, I don't know what your experiences are in this field.
No comment on the women front. So, the question that I have is that I'm now using 4 things on my skin, whereas I normally would only use the one. I have
the body cream, the suntan lotion,
the body cream, the suntan lotion,
the mosquito repellent,
the mosquito repellent, and the bite treatment, the balm.
The bite treatment as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So the question here is, which order should I put them on in? And
I was expecting a scientific question for some reason. I suppose it is. No, it is in a way. But
it is because which order is most effective?
Yeah.
And do any of them sort of counteract the other, or
That's a good question.
Does the coconut oil actually attract mosquitoes? Should I?
God, I hadn't thought of that. Makes you more.
So I've been thinking, James, for a couple of years. I've been listening to you.
Yes.
And to echo your previous. Please don't go on holiday. I don't know why you would require to go on. And why can't you do the show from wherever you are? Just like I'm doing now. You can do. Anyway.
I need a rest, mate. I don't know. Just because I make it seem so easy doesn't mean it doesn't exact an enormous.
You do.
And also, Keith needs a rest. Imagine what Keith would have to put. He loves it when someone comes in to do my holiday cover because they treat him with respect. They treat him with respect. They treat him like an esteemed professional colleague. Little do they know.
Indeed.
But you're very kind. I like the question. And also, I'm quite interested in the answer. So we're going to go with the coconut body butter, are we?
Yes.
But anything, because the coconut might be specific, something that the mosquitoes are attracted to. Would it cancel out the repellent? And then the suntan lotion?
The fact is that since I got here 10 days ago, they've had a go at me. They recognise
the mosquitoes.
I'm not a local, and they figure they're going to have a pop at me.
Do you know? I think. Oh no, that's not right. There's vinegar. Vinegar is good. Drink a lot of vinegar.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'd rather get bitten.
No, no. Do you not like vinegar?
No.
Some nice vinegar. You're in Rome. You can have some balsamic. Put a lot of balsamic on your salad.
Yeah. I get that, but that is in a very limited situation.
Yeah, but a little swig of cider vinegar, a little swig of cider vinegar now and then is actually quite pleasant. Very good for your guts. Keeps you regular.
I'm sure it is, but.
My daughter was covered in mosquito bites a few years ago in Greece, and we were sitting in a taverna, and a lovely lady at the next table was concerned for her and gave her advice to drink a little bit of vinegar, and so she did. And I mean, obviously, she nearly gagged because it's horrible, but she didn't. But I don't think she got bitten again all holiday.
Okay.
So it's worth a thought.
Right.
It's worth it. I mean, it's better than being covered in. Go on.
Just a drop then would possibly.
Well, look it up. I mean, I'm not necessarily qualified to be giving out medical advice on reflection, but I just have. I'd have thought a couple of capfuls or something like that. It's just enough for it to be excreted later in the day. Enough for you to be giving off an undetectable hint of vinegar, but it would be detectable to your mosquitoes. You see.
Fair enough.
You can have that for nothing, Milton.
Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
I've been thinking for a couple of years for a sensible question to
ask. And now you've got a cracker.
And finally, I got one on.
You have, and it's a winner.
And the board game would be just a bonus.
Yeah, all right. I don't want to introduce this as a new sort of precedent on the programme. Everybody being, because it undermines all the compliments now. It's Tony's fault, this, isn't it? He sort of said lovely things about the programme and me going on holiday, but very hard for me to separate that from the naked desire for a free board game, lads. I don't know. 29 after 12 is the time. Shall I squeeze in Hannah, or shall we take her after? Yeah, Hannah in Chigwell. Question or answer?
I have an answer.
Oh, fantastic. Carry on, Hannah.
To the crying question.
Oh, yes.
I think I do anyway.
Go on.
So when you get stressed or angry, which is normally why you cry, you produce stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline and other nasties. And the body, when you cry, it's one of the body's ways of excreting the kind of byproduct, all those hormones that you don't need, I think.
Yeah, of course it must be. Qualifications?
Well, so I'm a nurse, but I attended a psychology lecture, and that's what the psychologist was telling me.
That's perfect.
So yeah, I have a feeling to take her word for it.
No, that is brilliant, and it makes perfect sense, because there's got to be some sort of chemical explanation for the feelings that you have, and getting the chemicals out of your system. There's got to be part of the reason why we don't spend our whole lives in states of, euphoria or cheese-based cheese-based joy.
I don't know why you cry if you're happy, though.
Same reason. It's a different hormone, or it's a hormonal reaction. Some people cry. Some people don't. I love it. Gin and tonic. A lot of people are saying for mosquitoes as well. I thought the tonic. There's quinine in tonic, which is good for malaria, but I don't know if it actually repels. Anyway, I digress. Hannah, you've got.
It's gin and tonic.
You don't need a reason. Here's a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Amelia Cox is here now with the headline.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien. Call 0345 6060 973.
32 minutes after 12 is the time. We've done the crying one and we've done the honeymoon one. Why are sweet potatoes one of your 5 a day when potatoes are not? Why do we call it a W when it is in fact, certainly on keyboards at least, a double V? If you threw a coin off the Empire State Building and it landed on the head of somebody below, would it kill them? And in what order should you put on your various unguents when you're on holiday? And the 4 that we have selected for the purposes of this question, thanks to Milton, are your coconut body oil or body butter, moisturising cream, your suntan lotion, your mosquito repellent, but also your bite treatment. Does it matter? Is it going to have any effect upon the efficaciousness of any or all of the unguents if you were to put them on in a different order? 0345 6060 973. Lisa is in Watford. Lisa, question or answer?
Answer for you.
Carry on.
Sweet potatoes. The reason
it's lovely when callers have pet names for presenters, isn't it?
Oh, okay. I like it.
Go on. Why is that one of my 5 a day when a normal potato isn't?
It's to do with the structure of the carbohydrate in it. So in potatoes, the structure is starch, and in sweet potatoes, it's basically a sugar. And to be one of your 5 a day, a fruit or vegetable has to be a non-starchy product,
okay.
vegetable plant. And also in the coloured sweet potatoes, you contain chemicals that act as precursors to vitamin A and stuff like that.
And
so what basically why.
Is there a genus or whatever the correct term is? So they're in different categories of food.
Completely. Sweet potatoes are related to morning glory. So they're part of the Convaceae family, where normal potatoes are solanaceae, so they're part of the nightshade family.
There you go.
So they're nothing to do with carrots. Apart
really?
From the colour of some of them.
Right.
No.
What else is in the morning glory family?
Things like bindweed, Japanese knotweed, bugleweed, all those things that you really don't want in your garden.
Oh, so it's a bit of an anomaly then, by dint of being desirable.
Yeah, it's just because it's a tuber, and I think it's called a potato because
it looks like a potato. That's what we thought.
Spud.
That's what I said. That's what I said to Jack when he rang in with the question. But I didn't go anywhere near as far as you did. What are your qualifications? That's an amazing answer, and you know all your dropping those technical terms into the conversation like they were going out of fashion.
I'm a medical herbalist. So basically, I've studied plants and their effects on the body, etc.
I'm sure you know this. You'd have been burnt as a witch 400 years ago, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah.
Quite relaxed about it. No, but I wish I could remember what book I was reading recently. I think it was by Andrew Taylor, and it featured a character who was a medical herbalist and just handed down through generations the plants and the herbs that had effects on everything from period pain to to verrucas or something like that. And it's probably an under appreciated discipline that you practice.
It is, and quite a lot of the drugs that are in the BNF are based on plants. And you were talking about quinine earlier, which comes from a plant. And
comes from tree bark, doesn't it? Does it come from? No, that's aspirin.
Yeah, it does. Cinchona. It comes from bark.
My father-in-law was raving about turmeric, the effect that turmeric has had on his joints since he started taking it, and he takes it with a bit of black pepper because that aids absorption.
Pepper. That's it.
Oh, this is lovely
and also
stuff.
to put it in some oil, coconut oil. And that will aid absorption of it.
Don't tell
but
Milton.
The last witch to be burnt in Europe was mosquitoes. Just get them with a sledgehammer.
not when it's on your husband's head.
No. Get them before they land on you. But the last witch was burnt in Spain in 1926.
Good God.
It wasn't that long ago.
Is that right? I did not know that. Oh, you're well over the line for a round of applause. But a slightly silly question. What is your favourite herb?
What favourite herb?
As in, or your favourite thing, as in the thing that has the most profound impact or widespread impact that many people listening to this won't know about. Have you got one?
Belladonna.
What does that do? I thought that was a poison.
It's only available to herbalists. That's deadly nightshade, yeah. Oh. But poisons are only about the dose.
What does belladonna do in a good dose?
It's a general relaxant for kind of internal muscle spasms, sweating, stuff like that.
Wow. Oh, yeah. I could talk to you all day. I find this stuff absolutely fascinating. How much of your own gear do you grow?
Not that much because I live in London and it's a bit polluted.
So you get it via suppliers.
A bit of a brown bottle. Yeah. Friends have been.
Sensational.
I have gone picked stuff for people when they've needed it. Kind of nipped out into the woods and picked it.
Yeah. Oh, I love it, Lisa. Thank you. That's an absolute education. Have a round of applause on me.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Martin is in Canterbury. Martin, question or answer?
It's a question, James, and it's good to speak to you.
Likewise, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you. It's about, I'm not sure if it's specifically about the First World War, but when you look at war records, they refer to the theatre of war, the Western European theatre of war, and it seems quite a curious term. Theatre. Why do they use the term theatre of war?
As in, I see what you mean. Like, what's it got? It's not in a theatre. It's a blooming great war. So why do they?
It's a big field. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is it? I'm trying to think what the word would be. Is it because they're trying to? I mean, it means like the totality of the war, doesn't it? Like everything that is. You talk about the theatre of war. You're not just talking about one battle or one element.
I think so because I came across this because I'm doing some family history at the moment, and as you say, it's the totality because it was one of my distant relations was within a bigger group of battles. So, yeah, that could be the case.
Well, I don't. But why theatre? Why would they choose that word and not choose another word? I'll try and find out for you. I like that one. I have never thought of that before, but they're my favourite questions, the ones that have been right under our noses all of our lives. Why do we say theatre of war? Thank you, Martin. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need if you think you can answer that question. Glenn's in Westcliff. Glenn, question or answer?
Lang tida nespace. That's Old English for a long time no speak. How you doing?
Here he is, our resident Old English expert. Oldie English expert, even.
That's the one. Getting older.
Where have you been? What's going on? We still get lots of questions.
Like I said, I'm actually calling from Basildon. I'm back at work. Last time I tried to phone you was during lockdown when I was furloughed. I live in Westcliff, so So I've been but there's been nothing relevant really. You've got a new linguist now. You've replaced me.
You mean Martin up in Cumbria?
Yeah, he's brilliant.
You've got to get in quick, Glenn, if you're going to... He's nicking your act, mate.
Totally, mate. Anyway, so W, where's it come from? So in the Old English or Anglo-Saxon period, we'd use a letter called wun, which looks a bit like a stylised P, and that's how you make the W sound. It was based on an early sort of Germanic rune. It's quite we lost most of our Germanic root letters after Norman conquest. And this is why W is relevant, because the Normans wanted to make the English spellings more relevant to Norman French, or they wanted to sort of francise the English spellings. So rather than using one, they would write two U's together to make the W sound. Hence, it became W. And like everything, over time, we've got lazy and shortened it to just look like the two V's.
There it is.
You know what I mean?
So trying to sound more French and less German.
Yeah, exactly. Incidentally, that's pretty much how language develops. We get lazy. We find quicker and easier ways of writing and saying things. Hence, as in, this is relevant, honeymoon became honeymoon.
Oh, look at that. There you go. Great play. Honeymoon. Honeymoon. John will like that. Did you like his car owner virus joke?
Oh, don't get me started on the car.
Honestly, stuff I have to put up with in the name of work, Glenn. Honestly. Anyway, it's nice to have you back. And you get another one of these all day long. Have you?
Cheers, mate.
I didn't ask what your qualifications are. You Anglo-Saxon is your passion, but you translate poetry a lot as well.
I'm basically a huge Anglo-Saxon nerd, so I started learning to speak Old English about 10 years ago. I'm never going to be an expert, but it's just a good hobby.
You're already an expert, mate.
People keep asking me stuff.
There you go. That's it. You've got to own it. Lovely stuff. Thank you, Glenn. And there it is. It's an attempt to sound less German and more French, which, as he tells us, explains quite a few evolutions in the quite a few stages in the evolution of common modern English. 12:42 is the time, so we still need answer. Got that one. The Empire State Building question, the theatre of war question, Milton's skin regime question. That's all I've got. Okay. Oliver is in Walthamstow. Oliver, question or answer?
Hello, James. It's a question.
Carry on, Oliver.
I've had this in my mind since before you went on holiday, so I'm glad Mystery Hour's back. So how quickly does it take a strand of your hair to turn grey, or does it grow out grey? Because I've kept noticing greys appearing on my chest hair, and they seem to pop up every day or two, and I'm not sure if they're turning grey overnight or if I'm just not noticing growing them.
Does a fully grown hair turn grey, or does a brand new hair come out grey, is the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked, I've just undone my shirt to check.
I was looking at my chest there a minute ago while I was on hold as well, and I've noticed more since when you went on holiday. And I don't think
since we put you on hold, I said it hasn't been that long. I quite like that. I don't know why. I quite like I like it on my beard as well. The bits of grey. I don't know if I feel the same when it's entirely grey, but I quite like the salt and pepper they call it, don't they?
Well, I've got an entirely grey moustache. So,
have you?
Yeah, ginger beard and a grey moustache. So it's.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, it plays on my mind a little bit.
Well, it would do. And then you've grown them out, have you? You actually you wear a ginger beard and a grey moustache.
Yeah, but it just looks more like an invisible moustache.
It's a mixture, though. It's going to be a bit pepper. I like that. I will find out for you. So, I mean, we should really know this, shouldn't we? Does a fully grown hair suddenly turn grey, or does? I think it does. Didn't someone on telly sort of go grey overnight? Was it Philip Schofield?
I feel like I'm going grey overnight at quite a young age.
I'm doing my best, Oliver. Everyone's a critic.
Need someone to put my mind at rest.
Let's find out. How does it work? Do they go grey? Does a fully grown hair go grey, or does a new hair grow grey? Does it go grey or grow grey? That's not bad for 12:45. Normally that kind of verbal dexterity deserts me at about 11:45. Go grey or grow grey? 0345 6060 973.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
It is 12:47. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I like this tweet. It says, I'm currently listening to two grown men examining and comparing the colour of their chest hair live on the radio. It can only be Mystery Hour. Indeed, it can. And a shout out quickly to Michael, who says, I found my first grey chest hair last week. Oh, dear. I think that getting older is a bit like birth and death, in that there's a tendency to think that it's the first time that it's happened to anybody. In a way, every death and every birth feels like the first one ever. You never get bored with death or birth. Every birth is supremely exciting. Every death is utterly heartbreaking. But getting old is a bit like that as well. You find your first grey chest hair, you think it's absolutely incredible. My God, I've got a grey... But of course, it's hardly news, is it? Outside your own chest. There we are. It is now, Michael. I've shared it with the nation. 12:48 is the time. Angela is in Norwich. Angela, question or answer?
Good afternoon, James. It's an answer.
Carry on, Angela.
It's an answer to the question about theatre of war.
Oh, yes.
Have you heard of a chap called Karl von Clausewitz? Great strategist, military strategist.
I think I have, yes. On War, he wrote, didn't he?
That's right.
Yes.
And he wrote it in German, vom Kriege. And one of the challenges is that having written it in German, the Western world then translated it into English.
Right.
And he defined the term Kriegstheater by translating the original Latin term Theatrum Belli, which means denoting a portion of space over which war prevails with protected boundaries so that we can understand it. So it makes it interdependent. It makes it independent, makes it a specific area. It comes from the Latin Theatrum Belli. And
the whole area. So everything that is contained within that war is in the theatre of war. So does theatrum not translate directly as theatre then?
Yes, it does.
It does as well. So it's also the word they'd have used for where, I don't know, Plauchus put his plays on.
Exactly. And if we think about things like amphitheatre,
yeah, of course,
the word goes straight back to defining a space in which something specific happens. And so you have Theatrum Belli, which is the theatre of war.
Great work. Qualifications, please?
MA in military history.
Oh, lovely stuff. I bet you never thought it would come in this useful, did you?
Not quite, no.
Round of applause for Angela, please. Oh, I like that one a lot. And that wasn't Milton's question. Who asked that question? Martin. I've got a Milton and a Martin mixed up, so that's Martin's question dealt with. And Angela answered that one. 12:50 is the time. Harry's in Norwood Junction. Harry, question or answer?
I have a question, Mr. O'Brien. Thank you very much for having me on.
You're very welcome. Carry on.
I am 34 and only 3 of my wisdom teeth have come through so far. And I'm wondering why they come through in the first place, because they have coincided these 3 times with breakups, and I'm wondering whether stress or hormones has anything at all to do with it.
Oh, bless you. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's weird. You've
grown a wisdom tooth every time you've broken up with someone.
Yeah, I don't know whether growing is the right word.
Don't have any more relationships, will you? Your mouth won't be big enough.
Well, I need one more for the quartet, so I should probably go for another one, shouldn't I?
Is that I can't. I've got. They're weird. Everyone's different with wisdom teeth, I think, or not everyone, but not everyone has all 4 come through. I've got one still below the surface. It pops up every now and then.
They poke their enamel heads through, and then they sort of stay or they don't, and it's all very confusing.
Mine goes back down again. So some of the worst pain I've ever been in involved an infected wisdom tooth.
Ooh.
Really nasty. I was frightened of peanuts for years after that, because I think I got it from a Snickers. And the dentist has a look. So some people, when you run your tongue right around the back of your mouth, there's no room for any more, which means they've probably come through. Or you have actually got a bit of unoccupied gum which means there might be one under there.
To come.
And then some of them come through and cause all manner of problems and pain. I like your question. What prompts them to come through at the time? It's unlikely that it's linked to emotional trauma, Harry, I think.
Very. It's probably, congenital, I suppose, isn't it? Congenital?
Congenital or coincidental in the context of your breakups. But just all right, we'll find out.
Exactly.
Why do they appear when they appear?
Yes, please.
Love it.
Thank you very much, James.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Harry. Wisdom teeth, Harry. And someone can answer that, ideally a dentist. 12:52 is the time. Barbara is in Melksham in Wiltshire. Barbara, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
It's the answer to can hair turn grey or does it
go grey or grow grey, Barbara? Go grey or grow grey?
It has to grow grey.
Right.
It can't turn grey. The hair's dead as soon as it grows out of the hair follicle, and it can't turn grey overnight. It can't just turn grey. It has to grow grey.
Bit daft of me, really, wasn't it? Not to remember that.
Really?
How can something dead? Well, I suppose dead things can change colour, can't they? But
they can, but hair can't.
But they all
unless
would.
you dye it, of course.
Well, if one did, they all would. So what people probably miss is that we shed quite a lot of hair, don't we? So that's why you go grey, because you're shedding the old hair and growing the new hair, which is grey. And therefore you cannot immediately go grey your hair. So our man's chest hair, whose chest hair was it?
Yes.
What?
It's all the same. Hair is the same.
Oliver's newly sprouted, and Michael's just found his first ever one. That's grown complete. That's come out in the...
But hair on the body, eyebrows, eyelashes, chest hair, pubic hair, has a shorter life than hair on the head.
It does indeed, which is why...
So it may appear to change overnight, but it doesn't.
You've just grown a new one.
I have good qualifications on that as well.
I wondered where you were going there, Barbara. What are your qualifications?
I was a colour specialist in London for many years.
Does anyone ever get their chest hair dyed?
Yes, they do.
Really? People like the late, great Peter's. Nick Ferrari, has he ever been in for a quick touch-up on his chest hair?
Oh, I couldn't say.
Have a round of applause. Thank you. 12:54 is the time. Charlie's in Bristol. Charlie, question or answer? Charlie, are you there? No, let's have a little recap on. So it's not just me, is it? Is he there? No? Cool.
Hello?
David's
Can you
in.
hear me?
Oh, yeah, what are you doing, Charlie? You're live on the radio, mate. You can't be faffing about like this. No? Okay, David's in Richmond. David, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
We don't have wisdom teeth. Some of us don't have wisdom teeth now because we are phylogenetically superior, i.e. we don't need them any longer.
Yes. That wasn't the question.
I know. It doesn't answer the stress thing, but it explains why we don't have them now.
But why do they come through when they come through?
That's to do with the same with hormonal and adolescence and growth, just as our bone structure isn't fully established till 22 years of age, 23.
Yeah, is there an upper limit on it? So if your wisdom teeth haven't come through by the time you're 30, they're never going to come through?
Yeah, they're not going to come through.
Is that right? So it's just the same as, let's think of another example, just the same as anything else that grows, really. I mean, it's the same as your baby teeth falling out. It's just a cycle, exactly. a cycle of time, of humanity, as it were.
Yeah. Exactly.
I quite like that.
And it's an evolutionary adaptation to not have wisdom teeth because we don't need them to chew branches and trees anymore.
Did we used to chew branches and trees?
No, just made that up.
No, I thought you might have done. But we would have eaten a lot more uncooked and unprocessed foliage. We would have been nuts and berries. I don't know why I started actually doing it then when I was talking. But you would have needed more of a sort of vegetarian diet, and you'd have needed to do more uncooked is probably the crucial point here, isn't it? Uncooked vegetables and I like that a lot. Qualifications?
Yeah. I'm a medic.
That'll do. Round of applause.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you, David. So many people now are telling me that they've got Elliot just found a white-tipped hair. He says, I nearly took a photo. God, what's wrong with me? I don't know, mate. Why do I have some grey hairs, not half a grey hair? I think something's got lost a bit in translation there. The short answer is I don't know. But and the sun bleaching your hair, Paul, is not relevant in any way to any element of this conversation. And look, I chose the age of 30 arbitrarily. It's not that. It's just that nothing is going to make your wisdom teeth come through except the passage of time, and it will be at a different time for different people. In the same way that your baby teeth only fibrous, Julie. That was the word I was looking for. Fibrous plants. Thank you. Fred's in Manchester. Fred, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on, Fred.
Before I ask the question, a quick painting of the picture.
Thank you.
In European languages, there are symbols above or below a letter to help with its pronunciation.
There are.
A child at school is told to break down a word so they can read it.
Yes.
For example, YouTube, using that philosophy, becomes your to be. Google, go ugly. Read becomes Riyadh.
Yes.
So how come we don't have symbols above or below the word because we call it Loughborough and not Loughborough?
Loughborough. Or Loughborough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's not what accents do in other languages, really.
It does in German with the umlaut.
And does the cedilla do that in Spanish as well?
Good question. Not sure about Spanish. I don't know much about Spanish.
But the grave and the acute angles in French don't. They just give you how you pronounce an E. They don't tell you what you do with an elided pair of words. Whether you, I guess the short answer is we don't need it. We've muddled through without. And you've only got a minute left. So unless Sheila Fogarty knows, Fred, I don't.
Hablo español.
Really?
Yeah.
Pardon? Bless you.
I might be able to help with the Spanish question.
Why don't we have any accents on English words?
I don't know.
No, me neither. 03456060973, but be quick. Charlie's in Bristol. Charlie, question or answer?
Hello, James. Answer.
Carry on.
So it's an answer to the penny falling off the tower.
Go on.
So a penny reaches a terminal velocity after about 50 feet of free fall. So, the Empire State Building is a hell of a lot taller.
It is. So you're not going to kill anyone. It's going to hurt a bit. Well, you're going to know it's going to smart, but it's no... Yeah, go on, sorry.
The terminal velocity is only about 25 mile an hour.
Yeah.
For example, give a comparison. When you're playing paintball...
Yeah,
you're getting hit by paintballs going 150 mile an hour.
There you go.
They're heavier.
Round of applause.
And they're
no, you've done it.
You've done
it. So the answer's no. You don't die.
Yeah, the answer's no. I won't overcomplicate it.
Perfect. Well done. Tony will be happy. Was it Tony? It was Tony. Round of applause for qualifications. Come back. Give that back. Give that back.
Engineer.
What?
I'm an aerodynamics engineer.
Well, yeah, that'll do. Round of applause for Charles. Absolutely, all day long. That's it. I'm going to pick a winner. I don't know that I wrote her name down, but I think she was called Angela. Was the medicinal herbalist called Angela? And yeah, Angela wins the ball. Obviously, Angela wins. Also, I wasn't trying to be funny when I said, "Do you grow all your own gear?" Lots of people think I was doing some sort of subliminal, druggy Withnell and I type reference. I was not. I just didn't know what other word to say for herbs. Anyway, that's it from me for another day. We'll do it again tomorrow from 10. Up next, and go and see Sister Act if you get the chance. An absolutely brilliant show, and goodness me, we're so lucky to have Beverly Knight. And indeed, we're so lucky to have Sheila Fogarty as well.
Oh, shucks. Thanks. 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 Thanks.